7:02 now,
All
coach.
right, Act. My man's right on it. Good. Okay, so we're gonna get rolling here. Thank you everyone for joining and giving a little time on a Wednesday night. I think this is very valuable information to those that are just joining now. This is kind of a lecture, if you will, for about 20 minutes of practice it to keep it pretty quick. I would at the very end ask if you have any questions or want to participate in any way. I am recording this. I will post it to the group. Hopefully, there's something that you gain out of this that will help you immediately or in the short term, or certainly when the season starts, or because I think this is all really important information. So I'm going to get rolling right now. So I think I first want to describe or identify what actually is the mental game and put a definition on the mental game. We certainly all know it's important. Most of us think we're good at it. Some are better than others, as I'll get to in a second. But what is the mental game? And I think this here that's on the screen now is the best way that I can come up with what is the mental game. To me, the mental game is the ability to perform as close to your peak potential as possible, regardless of circumstances. That's important, regardless of circumstances. What does that mean? That means that if it's the first game of the season, the last game of the season, your team is up 10, it's state championship, the game's on TV.
You'll think the fun is useful. You can do whatever you want. I'm going to shop.
Oh, if we could just mute everyone. Sorry. I just muted whoever was. Just keep it on mute if we could. That'd be great. So regardless of those circumstances, what's my playing time? Am I going to get another start? This ball is not the ball that I'm used to. This mound isn't good. This batter's box is not good. This is not my normal catcher. Oh, they didn't mow the infield. Oh, it's really hot today. It's really cold today. That regardless of circumstances, you're able to perform as good as you possibly can. To me, that's the best definition of what the mental game is. And just like everything else in all aspects of life, some people are born or raised to have more of mental toughness and mental abilities than others. Some kids are born faster than others, taller, stronger, academically better. However, the mental game is as trainable as any other aspect of sports or baseball in particular. So regardless of where you enter this talk in or whether you feel your mental game is, it is something you absolutely can get better at. So again, just to repeat before I move off this slide, the mental game is the ability to perform as close to your peak potential as possible, regardless of what the circumstances are around you. Okay. Why am I doing this now? Why did I pick the end of January to do this now? Well, there's two reasons. Number one, I just came off of the Mohegan Sun Baseball Coaches Convention, dealing with all kinds of high school players and college players, pro players, pro coaches, all kinds of people. That there was a lot of talks on the mental game, but there was also regular talks on hitting and fielding and strength and conditioning. But the mental game permeated almost everyone's talk. And in fact, I led a panel with Matt Blake, the Yankees pitching coach, with Rich Hill, who's pitched 20 years in the big leagues, and with Pete Woodworth, who's the pitching coach for the Seattle Mariners. And basically, it was about how to develop your pitching. And almost 3/4 of the talk was specifically about the mental game and how the mental game supersedes all the other parts of the development process. In addition, why I'm doing this now is you're about to go from the off season to the in season. What do I mean by that? Well, you haven't struck out with the bases loaded in a while. Your T exit velo is good. Your front toss is going great. Your hitting coach tells you you're fantastic. You're throwing plyos that are great right now, but you haven't gotten taken out of a game in the second inning, or maybe you can't get innings at all. So the mental game often doesn't come up until the season happens. And of course, till failure happens, which we basically know in the game of baseball, there will be failure. So all of a sudden, 2 weeks into the season, you go, man, this season didn't go the way I expected it. My mind is not working for me. It's working against me. And the reason, you didn't really prep it. You didn't have a plan to develop your mental game this time of year or at all. So that's why I wanted to bring this up and talk about this now. So one thing that I really enjoy and used to do with the pitchers or sometimes the full team at Sacred Heart is we would do a 3-minute breathing exercise. Either the guys would do it before practice or the coaches would do before practice, or actually often at the start of practice. This is something if your team doesn't do, you can do. Why? So before we talk about what it can do, why do we do this? Why would it be helpful at the start of each practice to do a 3-minute breathing session? Well, maybe you had a fight with your girlfriend. Maybe your parents, something's going on at home. Maybe you got to the field late. Maybe you have an academic issue going on with the test. Maybe you are a college kid that lives off campus and now your plumbing is leaking and you're dealing with that and that's causing stress. Or maybe you're on social media and you're scattered. So a 3-minute breathing can bring you centered and can actually lock you in for the next hour and a half or 2 hours of practice, where now you can't do anything about the leak at the moment. You can't do anything about the test or the fight with the girlfriend. It's now time to get better at baseball. So what I would like to do is I'm going to lead you on about a 3-minute breathing exercise right now. So if any of you are driving, be careful. I encourage you to do this with your eyes closed. But if you're in the situation where you don't want to do it with your eyes closed, that's fine. You do what you want. But I'm just going to lead a very short breathing exercise. So starting right now, everybody take a nice deep inhale through the nose and a long, slow exhale out through the mouth. Same thing again, deep inhale through the nose, long exhale out through the mouth. And as you keep doing inhale through the nose, exhale through the mouth, start to put a little focus on the breath coming in the nose. Feel the colder air coming in through the nostrils and feel the warmer air leaving through the lips. And if it helps to put a little focus maybe on your chest, expanding as you breathe in and collapsing a little as you breathe out. You can also do the same, putting a hand on your belly, feeling the air breathe in the stomach, and then deflate as you breathe out. And even in this short time of just trying to focus on the breath, it's very natural for our monkey minds to go, I didn't know we were doing this tonight. This is weird. Or, you know what? My food is waiting. Why am I doing this dumb breathing thing? Or the mind will race. So just, if it does, acknowledge it. Hey, I'm thinking about pizza. Back to focusing on the breath. In through the nose, out through the mouth. And as you might be able to tell, this could be done in any transition period. So you're going to study. All right, I could do 1 minute of breathing. I'm going to lock in now for 30 minutes and actually study and not be distracted. Or I'm driving and I'm getting frustrated by traffic, or whatever your situation might be. So I highly encourage you to have a pre-practice routine. Again, wonderful if the whole team did it. If not, to do it on your own. And really, if it's uncomfortable for you to do, it could be 30 seconds. It could be 30 seconds where you just say, locking in now, it's baseball time. So thank you for participating in that piece as we move on here. So part of mental training is visualization. That's kind of obvious. Some of you may know what that is. Some of you may not know what that is. So let's discuss it. To me, visualization is working on two very specific things: mastery and adversity. So first, before those two things, I like to do things with players. I've done recordings, which I'll talk about in a minute, where you do things like, okay, you're playing a big away game. Imagine you getting off the bus and you're going to walk to that field. You've been to that field before. You know what the dugout looks like. Where are you putting your bag? You're going through your routine of changing your cleats and your warm up, and you're for a pitcher is your band work, and your plyos, and then your long toss, and you're just preparing the routine that you're going to go through. You're just getting reps in of that situation. And you could even practice things like, oh, bus is late. Instead of being, okay, I've prepared. If I'm going to be a little late, here's what I'm going to do, modify my warm up, or whatever the situation might be. Oh, our starting catcher got detention. He's not at the game. Okay, I'll prepare for things like that. But ultimately, mastery is seeing yourself performing almost perfectly or basically perfectly. And you can do that through your mind's eye. Hey, this is when I'm hitting well. Here's 4 at-bats where I worked the count and drove a ball into the oppo gap and slid into second base and stood up and got my team pumped up. And then I went out to defense the next inning, laid out, stopped the ball, kept it in, flipped it to second base, got a force out. And a lot of you, of course, have history of great performances, so you could relive those performances. So that's a way to practice mastery or get yourself prepared for that. But what many don't do is also practice adversity. So you throw that great pitch on the corner, it gets called ball 4. You hit a ball right on the screws, it gets caught. You know you were safe coming down the line at first, you get banged out. Practicing adversity is hugely important. Why? Because we know it will happen. It pretty much happens in every game. You could still have a great game. Somewhere along the line, something probably didn't go your way. So what you're trying to practice with that adversity is, what is your reaction? Are you going to be the pitcher that throws the great changeup to get the double play ball? The shortstop boots it, instead of getting 2 outs or 1 out, you get no outs. Are you the kind of kid that's going to now give him the evil eye and stalk around the mound and get fired up and just throw fastballs down the middle and get shelled? Or are you going to say, hey, dude, I got you, man. I've walked people. I've screwed up. We're in this together, baby. Next ball's coming to you. How much would your teammate like that? How much would you like your shortstop, after you walk the guy, to come over to you and go, dude, throw strikes, man? That's not helpful, right? Pick each other up. And you can practice that, which will help you down the road and certainly will help your team. And Lord knows any coach or scout watching will think that you're mature because of your handling these adverse situations. So I mentioned it before. You can create your own audio rehearsal thing. Now, if that's not awkward to you to do your own voice and record it, and now through headphones you listen to your own voice talking you through what I described before, getting to my home field, my parents are in the stands and my girlfriend's there, and we're facing their guy that's committed to BC, and you're going through that whole thing. You can do that, or you can have a parent make it for you, or a friend make it for you, or a coach make it for you. Sometimes it's easier to listen to someone else's voice. But again, when I was a college coach, I would make this for a lot of the guys. A couple of guys would be like, it's not my thing. Other guys would go, oh my God, I absolutely love this. Again, to each their own. But it's a relaxation piece, and it's a preparation, and it's a mastery and adversity piece. Or I'm sure somewhere in this modern world, maybe you can even find one that's out there to help you, that's already been created and that works for you. So I would just encourage you, again, to take this into the season is something, and you don't have to get all crazy zen, but like, you're going to get to the field, you're going to warm up, you're going to take ground balls, you're going to take BP, you're going to run a little bit. This is just the same kind of thing, and it's getting your mind in the right place. Now, this may not happen at your age. Most people on the call here are high school kids where everybody's got bravado and everyone acts tough, even if they're not confident, because that's just sometimes the way life goes at that age, right? When, again, I was a college coach, I would get a lot of the pitchers in the same room. You're talking about, you have a 5th-year senior grad student who's 23 with a 17-year-old freshman. Hey, your first outing, were you confident? No, you probably heart beating out of your chest. How did you go about getting better at the mental game? How did you get more comfortable? How did you deal with coming in a tough situation where it was pressure and maybe you didn't have the proper time to warm up, or you warmed up 3 times, or like, so getting a group of pitchers together or hitters together or the full team together, or even one teammate, someone that maybe you admire, or maybe you're the person that has the right mental game and you see someone on the team struggling, hey, dude, this is something that I do that might help you each at bat as a routine that you can do, which I will talk about in a minute. So I do encourage you, you guys lift together, you hit together, you do all these things together, but a lot of people don't talk out the mental game, and you have great resources around you. And it just helps to do that. I make this stupid reference. A lot of times my wife gets angry with me for something stupid that I've done. And then I'll go out to dinner with another couple or a few couples, and we'll talk about the thing that I did that was stupid. And the other guys and women there will go, oh, my husband does that all the time too. And it's like, actually, it's like group therapy. I'm not the only knucklehead out there. And so I think that can help you when you are that hitter that gets nervous at the plate about, oh God, I got to get a hit in this spot. Other people have done that. How do they come through in the clutch? How do they work on their mind? So I encourage you to open up conversations with a coach, a teammate, a group of people, the whole team, whatever. I find this is something that can really boil the mental game down to a pitch by pitch actionable thing. And it's just a mantra. That's a fancy way of just kind of saying like a statement. And you have to find out what your statement is. Your statement might be at the plate, see ball, barrel ball, be on time, trust your hands, compete, worked hard, like whatever it is. It's not like 9 things technically, like elbow at 45 degrees, get good rotate. You're not saying technical things. If you're saying technical things, generally you're in trouble. But the point is, if we don't have a place to direct our thoughts, they can go haywire. I'll talk about this in a little bit. Everyone's been in the zone. In the zone, there's an absence of thoughts, which is great. If you're in the zone, leave it. But a lot of times our mind gets to thinking a million different things, and we don't have a place to direct it. So a mantra can be something that helps you focus the mind so that after you walk a hitter, instead of you going, oh my God, am I going to start walking everyone now? Or, geez, I can't get anyone out today. My curveball's no good today. Is that coach warming up guys in the bullpen? What's going on? And you get distracted. So a mantra could be something that is genuine to you, that you could write on a batting glove. You could write on your glove. You could put on your hat. You could do whatever that helps. Hopefully this doesn't offend anyone, what I'm about to put up on the screen, but this is Brent Teller, who played at Sacred Heart, went on actually as his grad year to play at Rutgers, was drafted, played in the minor leagues. This was his thing. Trust your S, F him up. Number 24. So what did that mean? That would mean when his mind wasn't going right, I used to see him step off, look underneath his hat, just to remember, this is my style. I'm going to trust myself, the work that I put in, and I'm going to compete. It's not always going to go perfectly, but that's what I'm going to do pitch by pitch when it's not going. I'm going to remind myself when it's not going the way that I want it to. I have an anchor thought to get back to. So self-talk is crucial, and having actionable thoughts is crucial. So I'm going to put a few things on the screen here to go through. For hitters, stay back is my least favorite thing in the history of baseball. When someone says to a hitter, stay back, I wonder, like, do you mean stay back at the school? Do you mean stay back on the bus? Stay back in the dugout? Stay back on the on-deck circle? Stay back 0.0005 seconds? Stay back 0.23? I don't know what that means, stay back. What does actually work and is actionable is in batting practice or a game, hit the ball oppo. If you're a lefty, crush the ball to shortstop. Or if you're a righty, crush the ball to the second baseman. Oh, I can do that. That's something that makes sense in my brain. Crush a ball that way. And by crushing a ball to the oppo infielder, guess what happens? You stay back. Same way with pitchers when they start missing location. Many of them start getting mechanical. Oh, I'm not bending enough. I'm not on top of the ball, etc. Okay, that might be what's happening, but that's tough in a competition to be changing mechanics. But what you can do is, if your breaking ball keeps backing up and staying high, a good catcher will get on one knee, pound the dirt, and say, dude, bury the breaking ball. If you don't have that kind of vocal catcher, you could think, hey, man, I'm messing up. Bury the breaking ball. Bury the breaking ball. And by burying the breaking ball, it's going to help you bend and get on top. Okay. In addition, there's kind of talked about this a little bit, but I always think of red, yellow, and green lights when you're playing baseball. Green light's the zone. Okay. That's the place you want to be. Red is like the worst play. Red is you've just thrown 11 balls in a row. 11 is I mean, a red is you're at the plate, having struck out 3 times, you're down 0-2 and going, oh boy, I'm in trouble. Yellow is where like you're thinking a lot, but you're in between. And that's where I like having an actionable thought, like see ball, drive it the other way, having a mantra to get you back to that green. Because again, baseball offers us a lot of time to think, and we can get into these bad places. So I always, talk to guys of like, hey, are you in red where like you are hyperventilating, step out of the box, call a timeout. If you're a pitcher, step off the mound, tie a shoe, regroup. Yellow is where there's just the brain is spinning and maybe you need to get back to that anchor thought, and green is you're in that zone. What I'm about to say now, I think is crucial. I think I have 2 players on that played for me at Sacred Heart that are in the big leagues now. Maybe they'll participate later, no obligation. And Coach Giaquinto, who's the head coach for a very long time at Sacred Heart, was huge on this. To say and think in positive words, meaning you go to an average Little League game, Stevie, don't chase the high pitch. Don't swing at the high pitch. The mind doesn't hear don't. It hears swing at the high pitch. Like if right now I say to this group on this call, don't think about me taking all my clothes off on the Zoom. Don't think about that. Guess what you've all done? Thought about me taking all my clothes off on the Zoom. I should state what I want you to think about. So I could say, think about me in an Easter Bunny costume. Well, that's something you could do. So see the ball down, pound the zone, saying things positive, go after this guy. Don't lose this guy. The worst thing he could say, go after this guy. So saying things to others, having others say things to you, and thinking them in a positive way, what you want to do as opposed to what you don't want to do, is absolutely crucial. Next thing on this here. Anytime we think about the outcome, which is normal to do, goodness, it's normal. I'm not saying I got to get a hit here. I need a hit. Our team needs to score this run here. I got to throw a strike. I need to get this guy out. That's outcome thinking. It's totally normal, but it makes you nervous. It absolutely makes you nervous, and it's often hard to participate when you're nervous. When you're thinking about something process-oriented, see ball, nice quick hands, slow feet, quick hands, attack the zone, pound the mitt, whatever it is, that's something that's a routine, fluid, be athletic on the mound. It's something that's in the process, helps you achieve that outcome without adding the stress of having to perform or get a particular job done that way. Can be really, really difficult. And you hear, Bill Belichick and all the great coaches talk about that the process will lead to the outcome. In baseball, it's a direct correlation that thinking about the outcome only will produce nerves. Nerves produces short breathing. It leads to restricted vision, monkey mind, the whole thing. So again, hopefully this is making sense. Try to have actionable process thoughts as opposed to outcome. Last thing on this page, and I just did a cool podcast today with Chris Holt. Chris is the new bullpen coach for the Boston Red Sox, was previously pitching coach for the Baltimore Orioles. And the podcast is not out yet, but at the end, I ask everyone, hey, what would you say to your younger self? Or what would you say to a high school kid or a young coach that is most important? And he said, bottom line is if you're not playing athletically, playing to compete, playing aggressively, playing to beat the other guy, it's a difficult sport. So if you're playing to have the right stride and to cut the ball the right way and to have your back come through at the right angle, or it's difficult to do because now you're thinking about yourself and you're really not playing against your opponent. So to free that mind and realize it's just you versus someone else. I mean, again, we could talk base running and defense, but let's face it, the majority of what we're talking about is the battle 60 feet, 6 inches away, pitcher versus catcher. And the goal is to beat the dude on the mound or to beat the dude at the plate. Ultimately, that's what you're trying to do. So you want to have these thoughts that keep you in the mindset of competing against that person as opposed to being too much in your own mind about what you're doing. All right, couple more slides. Parents. So what's the parents' role in all this? I bring this up because, listen, not back in our day, there's a lot of gray here. Back in our parents' day, our parents didn't show up all the time to games. My goodness gracious, if you had a game at 3 o'clock after school, your parent was working, couldn't get home. Now it's a different world and better in a lot of ways, but the parents are more involved. So what couple of thoughts for parents? Number one, at Mohegan Sun, I'm leading a coaching panel. There was Mike Leonard from Middlebury. There was Chuck Ristano, head coach at Navy, Steve Trimper, who is the head coach at Stetson, and then Donnie McKillop, who's the head coach at Loomis Chaffee. Chuck Ristano said, I recruit up the line parents. I want up the line parents. And we go, what do you mean? He goes, the parent that's behind the plate, coaching the kid, giving advice, carrying the gear, bringing the Gatorade. No. That's means the kid has been catered to. The parent is too involved. He goes, I want mature kids so I like the parents when they're up the line and you don't even really know they're there. So just bringing that up because that's out from a college coach's mouth 2 weeks ago. Number two, your kid's got to want it. Your player, the kid has to want it. Your job is hopefully to provide the resources and the opportunities. But if the kid is not a self-starter and doesn't want it, doesn't want to go do this, if you have to drag them to practice and wake them up to do it, it's time to maybe think about doing something else. So the kid has to want it and want that desire to get better. Third thing, and I say as a parent, remind them, and sometimes you have to remind yourself or your spouse to play the game for fun, meaning fun. What's fun? Competing against another team and beating them. Playing is to get better. Playing is for the sake of competition. When you play the game only for, what does it mean for my playing time? What does it mean? For college coaches, that's a difficult place to be. That's outcome focused. That's can be really, really, really stressful. So remind them it's a sport. There's failure, win and lose. When you're 30, you're going to remember the kind of person you were, the kind of teammate you were, and playing to beat the other teams. And yes, college is important. Playing these things are not that they're not important, but when it's only about that, it leads to stress. It leads to difficult time mentally. How to get better at the mental game. How can you actually incorporate some of these concepts to actually get better at the mental game? Number one, make it a part of practice. And I'll put the next thing in here as well. So I don't know, you play infield. Maybe you are having a competition during batting practice, you versus the second baseman. Hey, whoever could field the most balls in a row without an error. That adds some stress. It's a bunting game. Instead of just laying down bunts where you're half asleep, okay, let's put a helmet out. Whoever can hit the most balls into a helmet wins. Whatever you can do to make practice, make it a part of practice. And again, sometimes you don't have the whole run of the way practice goes, right? The coach runs that, but maybe it's a bullpen and the coach isn't around you and it's you and a partner throwing a bullpen. I don't know, make the last 10 pitches a competition. Play the game of horse. Breaking ball for a strike. Okay, the kid throws a breaking ball for a strike, no point. Change up, bottom of the zone. He misses the change up, he's got H, right? There's many things you can do. And if that's something interesting, without getting into more details now, I can come up with many things that you can do that make practice fun, that make it competition fun and actually build your mental game. Ping pong, it could be spike ball at the start of practice. It could be fungo golf. There's a lot of things you can do that just are old school competition that get your juices going, and it's an opportunity to work on that mental side of things. Make yourself uncomfortable. Ooh, I love this one. What do I mean? I don't know, make your shoes too tight one day, make your shoes loose one day, put your shoes on the opposite feet for 10 minutes, wear your belt buckle too tight, don't fix the mound for a bullpen, get a wet ball, throw a pen with a wet ball. Throw a pen with a 6-ounce ball for 5 pitches. Throw a pen, drill a hole in it. Throw a pen with a 4.5-ounce ball. See if you can locate it. Throw off center. Hit with an eye squinted. Hit with only to the one side of the field. Hit on high velo. Hit on really. Make it uncomfortable. It doesn't always have to be perfect for us. And when you make yourself uncomfortable, when you get into a game, you're more used to uncomfortable situations and you feel comfortable in the uncomfortable situation. But if you never practice that whatsoever, it's not a tool in your tool belt. So by the time something happens and you get a ball at an away game, hold on, I've never had this ball before. It's not something that's going to disrupt you. Last thing on this is I'm big on this, big, big, big. This supersedes baseball. I don't want to go into too much detail. The world has gotten soft, in my opinion. What do I mean by that? Everyone remote starts their car. God forbid you get into a cold car, right? And then when you go to run groceries, you have to park as humanly close. You'll drive around for an hour to get the spot closest to. I personally like to make everything extra hard. I don't warm up my car. I park far away as possible. When I bring my groceries in the house, I go one bag at a time to make it hard. I purposely make things difficult so that when life actually gets difficult, it's not a shock to the system. So, whatever that means in your life, if you can build your making it hard muscles, it can help you. There's a guy, Michael Easter, wrote a book called The Comfort Crisis of how making things easier in the modern world has often made us not able to adapt to certain situations. I'm not yelling here at anyone. Some of you are nails on this already. I'm preaching to the choir. But again, to build your mental game, it helps to do what I said there. On the screen now, and this is the last part here, and then I'll do a recap and we'll do some comments if we want. These are some books that I've had experience with or heard other people with. There's one that not up here that Zach Short and I was talking about recently called The Inner Game of Tennis that he learned about in college. And he's like, why am I reading The Inner Game of Tennis? I play baseball, that he's loved as off-season stuff. So that's one that's not up here. But Mental Game of Baseball on the upper left here by Harvey Dorfman is like the one of the original books, which then he broke into Mental Keys of Hitting, Mental Keys of Pitching, 90% Mental. I actually heard Bob Tewksbury speak at Mohegan Sun a few years back. It was incredible. Not to mention, I think every major league team now has mental skills coaches. This is an acknowledged part of professional baseball that you have a mental skills coach. Heads Up Baseball in the bottom middle. Ken Revisit is another one of the original Bibles of this. You could see Think Like a Warrior there. Mind Gym, I heard, is another one that's great. I haven't read. This Relentless Solution Focus. I did a podcast with Butch Thompson. He's the head coach at Auburn. He said Dr. Jason Selk is their team, mental game coach. That's his book. I've heard great things about it. And then the bottom left is a screenshot I took from football this weekend, where this is the book that I believe is the Eagles receiver was reading on the sidelines that got all that attention, and et cetera. So they did a piece on him, and that's the book that he was reading, Inner Excellence. So there's podcasts on this. There's YouTube videos, but I think having a book at your nightstand and delving into it is really important. So last part of my talk, and I appreciate you putting up with me. Just to recap, number one, the mental game is something you can and must train the way you train your body and your skill work. It's another piece that should be trained equally and not blown off until it's needed during the season. Number two, it doesn't show up in training settings and practice settings most often, right? It doesn't show up when you're doing front toss. It doesn't show up when you're doing long toss, but it may well be the most important element to performance when games come. Rehearsing the way you want to perform and react takes practice, just like everything else. Okay. Talk about it with teammates. Make it something that is discussed. I mean, if you saw a guy throwing 95 on your team and he had a unique plyo routine, I bet you'd walk over to the guy and say, hey, what's that routine you're doing? Right. So if there's somebody that has a good mental game already or that's worked at it, I certainly would tap into them. Create a plan for self-talk. What things will you think in game that will be helpful for you rather than have no plan and then have your mind just go whichever way? Make it a part of your daily routine and practice if possible, whether it's breathing at the start, whether each day there's one competition or one way that you're making yourself uncomfortable, something making it difficult to be able to build those skills. So that's my part. I don't have the screen in front of me to know the time. I hope I kept it to no longer than a half an hour. And I hope you got something out of it. What I would like to do, and I'm guessing that people aren't comfortable enough to unmute to put on their video and say, that was great, my mental game stinks, this is good. But I would like if somebody is comfortable enough to participate and just talk about your own mental game. Is there anything in this talk that helped you? Would there be anyone that would like to be that first person to give some comment or feedback on this? Foles, is that you that's there?
Yeah, that's me. Sorry, can you hear me?
Yes, I can. So I'm putting him on the spot. This is Jason Foley, who played at Sacred Heart. I've done a podcast with him, which you can listen to. Jason is with the Detroit Tigers. He had 29 saves this past year. Pretty unbelievable story of a guy who didn't necessarily think he was going to play, or didn't wake up and say, I absolutely have to play college baseball. And he's in 9th and 10th grade. And then went on to have a great career in college to really develop and then blossom into the pitcher that he's in. So, Foles, I am throwing you on the spot. Any comment at all from your experience with the mental game, or anything that I reviewed that you like, don't like, anything that you want to add?
Yeah, I mean, there's obviously a lot. Well, thanks for that intro, by the way. Yeah, I mean, there's certainly a lot I could touch on.
I guess let me ask you one thing specifically. In your time in the minors and pros, have you tapped into a mental skills coach?
Yeah, we have one. We have a few with the Tigers. It's something that's becoming a little more mainstream and like accepted, I think, in professional sports. Our new GM we have a new GM as of like 2 years ago, and he's been pretty adamant on it, and he's hired a good team of guys and gals that we could talk to openly, and he's like encourages it. And I think kind of when I was in college, it was a little more like taboo to talk about, a little bit more like you're being soft or you're not being a man if you want to talk about this stuff. But it's pretty like widely accepted. Like you mentioned, the receiver on the Eagles, and I don't think you watch much football. Like I don't think you know him, but he's one of the best receivers in football. So it's like okay to talk about this stuff. And I was going to talk about the part when you said talk to. I do think talking. How you said taking action and training it. I do think just talking to people about stuff is good. And not to like just bottle shit up and just bottle stuff up and like just kind of like feel like you're like the only one that's dealing with it, because everyone deals with it. And yeah, I think it helps just to talk to people, whether it's like, you mentioned my teammate Zach Short, who's also on here. Like, I mean, there'll be times when throughout the season I'll just kind of like pour shit out to him, or vice versa, or it just sometimes it helps when you just talk stuff out with people. But yeah, I mean, sorry, I feel like I'm just kind of like speaking.
No, this is good. I guess I'll ask you this with the Tigers.
If you want to keep asking me things,
yeah, I do.
I'm happy to answer.
I do want to ask this, which is, first of all, the mental coaches with the Tigers, did they lead any group things? Is there any group presentation, or that? I guess I'll start with that. I have a follow-up to that, though.
It's very private. They introduce themselves in spring training, and then it's very you can reach out to them in any capacity you'd like, phone, text, email, and it's very behind the scenes. I mean, had you wanted to meet with a teammate and him and someone they both talk to, like sure, they probably would, but it's pretty like behind the scenes to make it more because it's not easy to talk about this stuff. And I think I'll also say, I know you mentioned that there's a lot of high school kids on this, or younger kids. Like, as someone who's currently playing at the highest level, like I would say I'm not good at this stuff. So I don't think you should be like beating yourself up if you don't think you're good at it. It's like I think it's the hardest part about playing sports. And I never even, if you're on this podcast as a high school player, I think you're already like ahead of the curve, in my opinion. Like I didn't really start trying to take this stuff seriously until maybe couple of years ago, and I don't consider myself great at it. So I do think you're already kind of getting yourself ahead of things. But
let me ask you this: with most teams, is it like you're required to check in, or these people are just straight up there when you need them and want them? It's not like even if you're going well, you'll meet with them. It's more like, hey, if you feel like it, here's your resource if you need it.
It's as much or as little as you want. It's not required. It's encouraged. It's not required. It's if you want to talk to them, great. If you don't. you could talk to them as much or as little as they can, as their capacity can handle. But yeah, I do think I think just sometimes acknowledging that it's normal, like, like I get as pissed. I mean, I get as pissed off as really as anyone. I've slammed stuff, I've blown up, I've mother effed myself, I've this and that. Like, I think sometimes acknowledging that it's like it's normal. Everyone does it. Like, no one's, whatever you see, however stoic someone looks like on the outside, like they're probably going through some stuff as well. So I think, again, when you could talk to someone about it and realize maybe like, oh, like this is pretty like normal part of baseball or sports or really life. It could just help maybe just put it in perspective that like, oh, maybe I'm kind of blowing up or freaking out over nothing or like whatever.
Yeah, I mean, two things I wanted to add there. Thank you for sharing that. It's like sometimes, and of course, this may be different again for the high school kid. Compared to the college kid. And college kids, there's mental health counselors that don't really deal with sports psychology, but they're there if something's going wrong in your world, it's going to affect your sporting thing. So sometimes it helps just to talk with someone, even if it's unrelated to sports, if you're in that, particular situation. Certainly, no question about that. Oh, I had a second thing, and now I totally, I totally forgot what it was. But anyone else that? Oh, I know what it was. Sorry, I got it now.
You're good.
Which is baseball has definitely the most mental game need because of how individual it is, but you're on a team concept. Yeah, basketball has mental, so does hockey, so does football. Obviously, golf does, but you're in there independently. Whereas baseball, like you strike out in a big spot, not only did you fail in front of when you feel like you let people down. So I think baseball is a sport that the mental game, just the way it's designed, has a huge, huge role. And you're right. And it's the same, Foles. I love what you said. Just because you're on here and you have a great career, it's like you don't have it all figured out. Nor does anyone have the perfect pitching mechanics, the perfect swing. You don't get a hit no one's nailed everything in life. If we did, like, we wouldn't be talking. Everyone would be hitting perfectly and have the greatest grades. Like, that's why we're in life, to challenge ourselves. So appreciate you participating in that. I would love to get a particular player or any player to just have any comment. So I might call someone out here if you don't want to answer. Ackerley, since you're fine with this, any feedback on, like, is there anything here that you listen to that you think you already think about, or you've done, or it's something you might do at this point?
No, I agree. I guess I think it's just a huge part of the game. And I think what I took away was that like 3 minute breathing exercise. I think for me, like if I implement that into my routine, pre-game, I think it'll kind of just help me like, get rid of all those outside, voices in either my head or anything that's distracting from the game itself or the at bat itself or the play itself. I think that'll just kind of let me, lock in and then like try to put my best foot forward and just get the job done.
Well said. Thank you for that. How about let's see, Jack Nolan? You feel like saying anything?
Yeah, so I would say thing for me that I kind of took away was like writing a cue either like on your hat or your batting gloves or stuff like that. 'Cause I feel like a lot of stuff kind of gets lost in your head and in your thoughts that like to have something you can just kind of look back on every time to like rely on is going to be really helpful for me. So I'm going to think about something to write, like in my batting gloves or on my hat to kind of just have something to always come back to. Because if something's going wrong, you got a lot of thoughts going on in your head. Like even if you try and bring yourself back to that same thing with just like thoughts, it's a pretty good chance it's going to get lost somewhere.
No, that's great. And I'm laughing as you're saying that because I don't know if any of you guys have had this experience, but my dad's 83, plays a lot of golf. Anytime I play golf with my dad, I have like a mental breakdown every time. First of all, I want to kill him with a 4-iron because all he does is give me 18 swing thoughts. And now I'm standing over the ball and I feel like a robot. And then when I play like alone or with friends, I just like get up there and I just go like smooth and I hit and I crank it down the middle. And he makes me happy. So I might need to, on my golf glove, have like a mantra when I play golf with my dad so I don't, get into a fight with him or smash him with a wood or something. But we have an esteemed guest here that I don't know if he wants to participate in this. Mr. Matt Rieger is on here, Matt is a strength and conditioning coach at ATP, also does a lot of mental game stuff. Matt, you might be not on the call, driving or eating dinner, but would you like to mention anything by any chance?
Yeah. No, I thought it was a good recap of a lot of topics. There's a lot to cover. Like that's where the mental game is such a broad topic. So I think like the biggest thing, like you were saying, the breath can kind of recenter you, and then having that mantra or cue to go to is super important because try to preach like the breath probably is not enough. Like that centers you, but then your thoughts are going to still go somewhere. So if you can direct those thoughts and that focus, that's going to be really important.
Good. And any of you guys that are local too, Matt does a great job with that. That, you know, an ATP that's a nice little feature where they do a round table, but Matt also is really, you know, acclaimed in that area too. So anyone else that wants to participate in anything, any feedback? I don't want to put people on the spot, but obviously you could see when I call on someone, they actually have really, like all of you are, you're in it, you live it, you know? So is anyone else that feels like adding anything before we wrap up? Shorty, are you currently driving or hitting?
No, I'm good.
Okay.
I'm good. I've been listening the whole time. And you know, just to piggyback what you and Foles both said, you know, Foles and I are very lucky to have each other. Like basically, you know, obviously he's had a lot more success than I have, but there's times throughout the season where we'll just talk like about whether it's on the field or off the field. And he made a great point of like just literally just talking whatever you're feeling to whoever it is, whether it's a teammate, coach, something. Like even if, you know, in our profession, we're lucky enough where we can go to the field early and just hang out in the cage or whoever and just talk. Like getting it out is such a big thing. And like, you know, I've worked with Matt a few times at AT&T over this offseason, and like after I think it was our first session this year, he was like, well, like that was a lot, like right away. And I was like, yeah, like I've been holding that in for a long time. Like, just like, it just kind of kept, and like, it was just snowballing. It was just coming out. And like, truly, as soon as I left, I'm pretty sure I either called or texted Foles and I was like, dude, I just had a meeting with Matt and it was amazing. Like just getting it out into the air. And again, like what Foles said, like I never, ever really took it seriously enough. And now, you know, I've kind of been, you know, I've been punched in the face a few times, you know, by the game, it feels like. And, you know, you've known me long enough where I spend more time either, you know, working on fielding or hitting, probably more, you know, more than I should. And I've come back to like, why hasn't it, I don't want to say paid off because it has in a way, but like, why has there not been more success? And it's not that you're owed anything, but it's like the one thing that I have not tried to tackle or tried to at least take advantage of is the mental aspect. And it's like, you know, when you're done playing, whenever that may be, like, it would be silly for me to look back and be like, man, I wish that I tried to attack the mental game a little bit more than even if it's just a little bit like talking and getting it out, opposed to trying to have, you know, like what Foles said, like that tough guy look on where, you know, nothing's going on in their head, or if you look at them on TV, like I bet you their mind is going a million miles an hour.
Yeah.
Whether that's high school, you know that there's scouts there to watch you, or whether it's college and there's scouts there to watch you. Like whatever it is, like, again, getting the feeling out, putting yourself in the best chance or in the best position to succeed. And like, those thoughts, like you said, or doing that 3-minute breathing exercise is huge. And again, Coach G back in the day was every Thursday night before a Friday game, we would do mental training. And I don't want to say I thought it was dumb, because I wish I took it more serious, honestly. Like, and even then, like I took it seriously, but not as seriously as I could have. And, you know, when I got drafted, I went to the Cubs, and like, I remember like, oh man, I'm glad I don't have to do any of that stuff again. Like, literally the first day that I get there and I signed and I'm working out with the team, like we have like a 5-minute breathing and meditation and visualization exercise. And I'm like, man, you gotta be kidding me. That Coach G is just everywhere. Maz is everywhere. But I do think, again, it is like the one thing you can run, lift, hit, throw as much as you want. But like, if your mentals are not in the best position that you could be, or at least trending towards that way, you're going to be behind the eight ball a little bit.
Yeah, I want to just unpack a couple things there. We'll for those that are, still hanging around, I don't want to keep everybody to it, but Shorty, that was incredible because you're right. Just talking it out instead of keeping it in maybe that single-handedly could straight up be something that helps the kids at this age. No question about it. Secondly, you and I were together recently and you told me, Maz, I read 3 books this off season. So they were all, can you tell the group what books you read?
Yeah. Well, I read The Inner Game of Tennis, Unbreakable Mindset, and I'm finishing Confident Mind right now. And obviously you can tell that, outside of baseball, like my focus this offseason has been my mental game, where again, I'm turning 30 this year. It's like, I'm not getting younger. Like, why would I not want to attack this, whether it's for baseball or for life? Like, because you're going to get punched in the face, whether it's on the field or off the field. And how do you react to it is, it's a fork in the road where it's like, am I going to go down and spiral, or am I going to, take it and then move on, And again, was it Mike Tyson? Everybody has a plan until they get punched in the face. And
Yes.
Again, how you react. And again, it's, January 22nd, like you said, I haven't punched out with the bases loaded recently. It's easy for me to say that right now, but again, I've talked more, I've read more, like I feel different. And I'm not just saying that because I'm on this right now. Like, I genuinely feel different. I feel like, again, when I do get punched in the face or punched in the mouth, whatever, like, I think I'm going to have a better attack as a rebuttal than in the past, where it's been like, here we go again. Like, everything I've done this offseason just going to waste. It was wrong.
Here's where I know you're going to get punched in the face. You're going to get punched in the face on Friday at 2:00 when I am going to kick your ass in bowling. I'm kicking your ass in bowling, and you'll be working on your mental game.
Oh, yeah, you can record that too. We can post it to your Twitter.
All right, everybody. Hey, guys, Zach and Foles, so appreciate it. I'm sure we could keep going with this, but I want to be respectful of everyone's time. I hope you got something out of that and hearing from these two, big league guys and Matt Rieger as well. So thank you guys for joining. I'll post this into our group area. If you want to reach out individually to talk more about this stuff, I'm available. So everyone have a great night, and thank you. Hope you got something out of that.
Thanks, Matt.
All right, guys.
Thank
Take
you,
care.
Coach.
Okay.
Bye.
Thanks,
Coach.